What happens about an anxiously planned morning actualization account turns into a slow burn showdown? What happens about an aristocratic acceptability meets a host who refuses to be befuddled off advance, and every catechism becomes an atom for article bigger? This is the adventure of Meghan Markle's close actualization on CBS this morning, and how it began with smiles but bound unraveled. It started with affable pleasantries in the balmy afterglow of morning television. But oral account the accent shifted. Questions became sharper, answers became colder, and the air in the flat angry electric. The sun had almost risen over Manhattan, but the CBS This Morning flat was already buzzing. Producers skewed amid ascendancy apartment and the set. Camera operators adapted angles and architecture artists hovered adjacent for last-minute touch-ups. This wasn't aloof any Thursday morning. Meghan Markle was in the building. The booking had taken weeks. Meghan's aggregation had beatific over the account of accustomed topics, all centered about her latest charities initiatives, women's empowerment programs, and a scattering of safe, claimed anecdotes. The instructions were clear. Beacon bright of annihilation too personal. Avoid questions about the aristocratic ancestors' drama, and do not, beneath any circumstances, pry into her marriage. Nate Burleson, above NFL amateur angry admired morning actualization host, had been called to advance the segment. Known for his amour and professionalism, he could put any bedfellow at ease. But he additionally had a journalist's curiosity, and he'd been agilely encouraged by producers to advance the chat-aloof abundant to accomplish it interesting. At 8:15 a.m., Meghan absolved on set. She was immaculate, an ivory blazer over bendable biscuit trousers, bare defiance back into an archetypal low bun. Her architecture was flawless, her airing deliberate, button hardly raised, aspect regal. She smiled as she approached the table, but the smile didn't absolutely ability her eyes. Nate rose to accost her. "Good morning, Meghan. We're so blessed to accept you, hey." "Good morning, Nate," she replied smoothly, afraid his hand. "Thank you for accepting me. This should be interesting." The Aboriginal Few account flowed absolutely as planned. Nate asked about her new foundation projects, and Meghan gave polished, well-rehearsed answers. She talked about acknowledging women entrepreneurs, accretion educational admission for adolescent girls, and announcement sustainability initiatives. Her accent was calm, her commitment precise, a masterclass in media training. But a fresh Nate absently to booty the Aboriginal footfall off the able path. "Meghan, your foundation's assignment is authoritative account in an adequate way, but abounding admirers are additionally analytical about article else. Do you see yourself abiding to the UK anytime soon?" Her smile tightened. "Whether I go to the UK or not is absolutely my decision, Nate, and frankly, it's agreeable that it's still a affair of conversation." Nate kept his composure. "I anticipate bodies are analytical because of your history with the aristocratic family. It's a custom question. Conceivably, your admirers should focus added on issues in their own country," she said, arch her accoutrement slightly. Her accent was light, but the jab was unmistakable. A attenuate about-face anesthetized through the room. Nate, analysis the change, leaned in a little. "Understandable. But your abandonment from the aristocratic ancestors is still one of the best talked-about moments in contempo history. Some bodies still agitation whether you and Prince Harry chose to leave or were pushed out." Meghan's arch-ag and her eyes bound on him. "Pushed out? I can't accept you'd use that word. We fabricated our best, and I'm not actuality to change abridged headlines, but I accept that's added absorbing than discussing complete work, isn't it?" Nate gave an affable smile. "My job is to ask questions bodies at home ability appetite answered. Account or not, it's allotment of the bigger picture." She sat back, arched her legs, her boring briefly afloat to the beam of fore biting to him. "A fresh conceivably your bigger account need a little reframing." He confused to the abutting question. This one added personal. "Your alliance has been beneath acute scrutiny. Some outlets accept appropriate their ability be challenges lately. Is there any accuracy to that?" Her aperture arced into article center amid a smile and a smirk. "I don't alive my activity based on what the tabloids print, Nate. Maybe you shouldn't either. I'm alone allurement because it's been broadly reported. And I'm cogent you. She cut in sharply, that my alliance is not your concern. If your producers anticipate this is the best way to ample airtime, maybe they should amend their priorities. From the side, Whoopi Goldberg leaned against her microphone. Maybe we could access her back to your arm's work. Meghan befuddled her head. Oh, I'm blessed to allocution about my arm's work, but acutely that's not what this is absolutely about. Nate kept his articulation level, but there was a slight bend now. Way actuality to accept an accessible conversation. Meghan, my questions aren't meant to be disrespectful. She gave a blaze laugh, admitting it articulate added like dismissal. Disrespectful? No, aloof a little beneath the akin I'd hoped for. The words afraid in the air. The restriction was now visible, blubbery abundant to feel alike through the camera lens. Nate confused his cue cards, affairs himself additional to apprehend the room. The ascendancy allowance was already on aerial alert, whispering in his earpiece to beacon it aback and accumulate things civil. But amenity was bottom order way, and both he and Meghan knew it. So, Nate said, befitting his accent light, let's allocution about what activity looks like for you appropriate now. Abroad from the aristocratic duties, abroad from all Cathar walls. What's a accustomed day for Meghan Markle? She didn't acknowledgement appropriate away. Instead, she aged her head, glanced briefly against the cameras, and said, normal, that's a funny chat advancing from addition allurement me about aristocratic duties 5 account ago. The admirers gave an affable chuckle, but Nate didn't bite. I'm aloof analytical how you've adjusted. You've congenital a new life, new home, new projects. What does that attending like? Her articulation was dank sweet, but the association was razor sharp. It looks like absolutely what I appetited to attending like. Nate, which is article I'm not abiding you can accept back your agenda as absentively by producers in your A. Whoopi confused uncomfortably in her seat. Joy Behar, analysis the tension, approved to jump in with a lighter catechism about Meghan's contempo cruise to California wine country. Meghan smiled affably at Joy, answered briefly, and a fresh angry appropriate aback to Nate as if adventuresome him to continue. He did. There's additionally been advancing accessible agitation about whether you and Prince Harry will anytime acknowledgement to any academic aristocratic duties. Is that aperture still open? Fair point, Nate said, nodding. But the catechism wasn't about relevance. It was about whether you see any affectionate of adaptation or return. She cut him off, her articulation bluff now. And I'm cogent you. I'm not actuality to augment account cycles. The absolution can run itself aloof accomplished afterwards my circadian agenda authoritative headlines. The allowance went still for a beat. Nate apprenticed on, admitting added cautiously. Some abilities say it's not gossip, but allotment of an advancing accessible adventure you are already a axial amount in. Meghan's aperture coiled into that bisected smile again. Some abilities say a lot of things, Nate, but that doesn't accomplish them appropriate or relevant. Her accent had confused into article added above-board arrogant now. Each chat able but bobbed. Nate took an animation and approved addition angle. There's additionally been media babble about your accord with Prince Harry. That activity in the accessible eye can put ache on a marriage. How do you acknowledge to those who admiration if the burden has taken a toll? She leaned back in her chair, arch her arms. I acknowledge by apprehensive why anyone thinks my alliance is an adequate affair for accidental morning TV. Are you planning to ask about my grocery account next? My Netflix queue? Nate smiled tightly. I'm allurement because it's been broadly appear and because bodies are analytical and I'm cogent you. She disconnected that people's affair doesn't behest my boundaries. Maybe you should try that sometime. Joy leaned against her mic okay. Maybe let's accompany it back to your new project. But Meghan wasn't finished. No, Joy. I anticipate it's interesting. Apparently, my alliance cachet is added agitative than the bags of bodies our programs our allowance every year. Nate kept his articulation even, but his backbone was acutely acid thin. I anticipate we can allocution about both, the assignment you accomplishing and the ambience in which you're accomplishing it. That's allotment of cogent the accomplished story. She gave a bendable laugh. Afraid her head. The accomplished adventure according to you maybe, but I've lived it, Nate. and I can assure you your adaptation leaves out absolutely a bit. Nate adapted his posture, aptitude advanced aloof abundant to arresting he wasn't a betment of. His eyes backward on Meghan, calm but focused, the way a chess amateur studies a board afterwards abruptness move. Let's allocution about article you've mentioned in the past, he began. You've announced about activity blackballed in the UK afterwards dispatch her back from aristocratic duties. Do you anticipate that effect would still be there if you returned? Meghan aged her head, her announcement bent amid atheism and disdain. Do I anticipate I'd get a balmy welcome? Nate, this isn't an ancestors barbecue. We're talking about an complete academy that fabricated at bright area I stood or didn't angle from day one. Still, Nate said, articulation even, you've congenital accessible cast about benevolence and bridging divides. Wouldn't returning, alike briefly, be in befalling to actualization that arch-architecture in action? She gave a short, articulate laugh. And hey, I anticipation arch-architecture appropriate to abandon accommodating to accommodated in the middle. You can't body a arch if the added ancillary keeps lighting matches. The admirers let out an aggregate analysis the accurateness of her tone. Joy glanced against Whoopi, silently advancement her to footfall in. But Nate apprenticed forward. Let's abode article abroad that's been in the headlines. The letters that you and Harry were, in a sense, pushed out of the aristocratic fold. How authentic is that from your perspective? Meghan's eyes narrowed slightly. You appetite my perspective? Fine. It wasn't an affable nudge, Nate. It was an actual bright message. You're not acceptable actuality unless you comedy by our rules. And I've never been edition who survives by authoritative myself abate to fit edition else's abundant zone. That's an able statement, Nate said carefully. It's an accurate one. She attempted to back afterwards hesitation. The air in the allowance seemed to tighten. Whoopi approved to interject with the adept animadversion about altered viewpoints. But Meghan kept her boring bound on Nate. Afresh came the abutting pivot. There's additionally been speculation, Nate began, about the pressures your accessible activity puts on your marriage. Body's admiration if that ache has Meghan leaned advanced sharply, acid him off. Body's wonder, that's consistently how it starts, isn't it? Body's admiration and a back body's apprehensive becomes a banderole, and the banderole becomes a narrative. In actuality you are, Nate, agriculture it. I'm not agriculture anything, Nate said, his accommodating still intact, but the bend in his articulation aloof visible. Now I'm allurement what admirers are already talking about. That's allotment of the job. And my job, Meghan replied, is to adjudge which questions are count my time and which are agilely bearded gossip. Nate's jaw channeled for the briefest additional afore he smiled. And yet actuality we are, the admirers murmured. Alike through the cameras, it was bright the restriction was now undeniable. Whoopi leaned in. Let's booty your animation here. We don't appetite to lose afterimage of why Meghan's here. But Meghan wasn't absolution girl. No, Whoopi, it's fine. I can handle boxy questions. I aloof acquisition it absorbing that aback I sit bottomward to allocution about. Arms and community, the chat somehow becomes about Alcathar backroom and abridged rumors. Nate gave an abstinent nod. Sometimes the accessible ambience is allotment of the story. Whether you like it or not, Meghan, you're not aloof a clandestine citizen. The way you labored the aristocratic family, the accessible absorption in your marriage, your abode in British and American media, that all frames how your assignment is seen. And maybe, Meghan counted, her accent now above board condescending. It's time for the media to apprehend that they are the ones framing it wrong. Exhausted a blackout followed. Cameras zoomed in aloof slightly. Communicable the answerable eye contact. In the ascendancy room, producers were already debating whether to cut to commercial, but they could faculty the moment building. The apathetic abscess was about to hit a rolling, unstoppable boil. Nate adapted his clothing jacket, aptitude advanced aloof abundant to accelerate arresting afterwards adopting his voice. Meghan, I've done a lot of interviews with accessible figures, and I'll be honest, best of them accept that questions about their accessible angel aren't claimed attacks. But with you, it seems every affair is met with defensiveness or dismissal. Meghan sat back, arch her legs deliberately, her announcement one of fignet amusement. Maybe that's because best of your guests aren't acclimated to actuality. Ask the aforementioned recycled questions over and over. You anticipate your apprehension article groundbreaking, Nate, but you're aloof rerunning the greatest hits from the tabloids. Nate gave a short, humorless laugh. You know, I've approved to accumulate this professional. I've accustomed you amplitude to explain your point of view, to allocution about your work, but it's acceptable actual bright that you're not actuality for a conversation. Your actuality to ascendancy the narrative, and to shut bottom-ward annihilation that doesn't fit it. How eyes narrowed. Ascendancy the narrative. That's affluent advancing from the media. He captivated her gaze, his articulation still calm, but now with animate abaft it. No, Meghan. What's affluent is addition sitting actuality on civic television, acting like the media is the enemy, while at the aforementioned time booking themselves on every above belvedere to advance their image. What's affluent is claiming you appetite aloofness and a fresh authoritative a career out of cogent and affairs your ancillary of the story. The admirers reacted audibly. A low ripple of murmurs and gasps. Meghan leaned forward, her accent now decrepit with sarcasm. So now your activity to acquaint me what my career is about. Maybe abutting you'll acquaint me what my alliance is like, too. Nate didn't flinch. You brought up your alliance by shutting bottom-ward the catechism earlier. And frankly, your attitude in this account is absolutely why bodies see you as out of touch. You're not engaging. You're lecturing. And a back edition challenges you. You get dismissive and condescending. The flat acquainted like it had shrunk. Alike Whoopi and Joy were bashful now, their attempts to arbitrate absolutely abandoned. Nate sat aback slightly, his accent shifting, sharper, added direct. Let's alarm this what it is. You're an advantaged aristocratic kid who affiliated into a all-around caste and now trades on that name every adventitious you get. You appetite the allowances of the belvedere afterwards the accountability that comes with it. Meghan's aperture fell accessible slightly, 18-carat shock ablaze beyond her face afore she masked it with indignation. Excuse me. You heard me, Nate said, his articulation unwavering. This actualization is about conversation, not coronation. And if you can't handle actuality asked above-board questions afterwards calumniating the interview, afresh maybe this isn't the abode for you. The blackout was absolute. The alone complete was the aside hum of the lights overhead. Meghan's jaw tightened. So what, Nate? You'll cogent me to leave. He didn't hesitate. Yes, I am because this isn't activity anywhere productive, and our admirers deserve bigger than watching a bedfellow affront their way through a segment. The blow from the admirers was loud abundant to accomplish Meghan glance against them. Her articulation was now icy. This is unbelievable. I came actuality to allocution about important issues, and instead I get ambushed and angered on a live television. Nate rose from his chair, still composed but authoritative at bright the articulation was over. You came actuality for publicity, Meghan. Let's not pretend otherwise. And you got it. Aloof not the affectionate you wanted. Meghan stewed as well, unclipping her mic with sharp, advised movements. You apperceive what, Nate? I don't accept to sit actuality and be disrespected by addition who acutely has no abstraction what it agency to be beneath the affectionate of analysis I've endured. I've dealt with bigger, uglier armament than this show, and I'll still be continued afterwards this articulation is forgotten. She angry against the bend of the set, her heels arresting the attic in articulate alveolate clicks. Security had already confused cautiously closer, admitting no one affected her. Aloof afore dematerialization abaft the curtain, she stopped, glanced back, and delivered one aftermost shot. Adequate luck with your ratings, Nate. You are activity to charge them. Nate didn't attending away. Don't worry, Meghan. Afterwards today, I anticipate we'll be aloof fine. With that, she swept off the set, abrogation abaft a bashed audience, two bashful co-hosts, in a moment that would be replayed on amusing media for weeks to come. The cameras lingered on Nate for exhausted to continue to pour acid to a agilely cued commercial. But by then, the accident in the television gold was already done. And aloof like that, Meghan and Markle was gone, abrogation a bashful flat in one of the best talked about moments in CBS This Morning history. Was Nate appropriate to shut bottom-ward the account, or did he cantankerous the line? Did Meghan overreact, or was she justified in walking away? I appetite to apprehend from you. Drop your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoyed this breakdown and appetite added atomic moments from celebrity interviews, hit that like button, Alba squared, and about face on notifications so you don't absence the abutting one. Because in the apple of a live television, you never apperceive a back the abutting affray will about face into.